last stop of the Rangers Ed Rivalry Tour. Today we're going to talk a little Pittsburgh Penguins. We got a special guest, Nick Belsky, coming on from the Tip of the Ice Burgh podcast, so we're pumped about that. But first, little Ed, you missed last week. Me and Coach went back and forth a little bit, talking about training camp, players to watch out for, just a little preview to the preview. But tell us what you were doing last week.
Well, first of all, great job, guys. I mean, did a great job. Just kind of last minute episode thrown together. Definitely helped me last night watching the preseason game. So I listened to the episode last week, and with the technical difficulties, Coach Ed on his toes just was able to jump right in and just talk to the fans for a few minutes there.
I was impressed.
When it happened, I was like, how long is this going to go for? Because you guys didn't tell me or anything.
I watched Neil enough and Steph enough where I could talk for 10 minutes.
Oh, jeez.
So I was like, oh, man, how long can he go for? And then you came back pretty quick. So it was a little disappointing, but a little relieving at the same time.
So it was a little nerve-wracking. Coach Ed alone on the mic for too long. I get a little concerned.
Without a delay.
I know what it's like to host. It's tough. I can't imagine by myself. But the Linkin Park concert was unbelievable. It was so much fun. Brought me back to about 16, 17 years old at the Lido, not Lido, I always say that, Jones Beach Theater parking lot, tailgating with my friends. So yeah, Linkin Park
was my first concert
show, and you were actually the one who got me into them. I think I was in 5th grade. Dude, super young. I remember doing my 8th grade music project on the history of Linkin Park, just random stuff. But they've always been my favorite band, and obviously rest in peace to Chester Bennington, the lead singer. So they haven't put on a show in 7 years, and all of a sudden they came out of nowhere and started posting on their social media, and they had this weird countdown going. So I was I sent it to Lindsay, who was a big fan when we were younger too. So she was like, what's going on? What is this? And then one night, Lindsay was at softball practice, and I was just laying on the couch. I think I was actually about to take a nap. And all of a sudden, I'm scrolling Instagram, and it popped up they were putting on a surprise live show in Los Angeles. And at the end of the live show, they announced a little mini tour, 6 shows, and an album coming out in November. So nap was canceled. I was all jacked up. My heart was beating 100 miles a minute watching Linkin Park perform live for the first time in 7 years. And they announced the show, and we got tickets the next day or the day after. And the show was this past or last Monday. So it all happened in 2 weeks. Wow. It was crazy.
And the new singer is a female, right? What's her name?
Yeah. So then that was the last announcement. Emily Armstrong, I believe. She's phenomenal.
Yeah, I heard she
was
a little
really little different style. Obviously, it's not Chester, and the thing that people are doing wrong is trying to compare her to him, which you shouldn't do. It's they're just trying to take a different turn, and the new song that they came out with her, the lead that we've never heard before, is incredible.
Yeah.
And then obviously at the concert, they're playing the old songs too, which she does an amazing job at, but it's not Chester. And what she also does cool is she kind of lets the crowd sing in the parts that Chester would be singing. So it's kind of a memorial to him, I guess, in a way. Not trying to take over his part, I guess.
Well, the big thing is you got a lot of people like me in those situations. Well, not me. Joey Dolls is like that. I'll go see Lynyrd Skynyrd, and they haven't been the original members in 30-something years, but I still love going. The music sounds the same. And you appreciate that. Yeah, you appreciate they're keeping it going, but a lot of the traditionalists don't want to hear that.
Yeah, they're not at that point yet. It's mostly the same, the same people. Mike Shinoda is obviously one of the lead guitarists, piano players, rapper, lyrics, whatever. He does it all. He's amazing. Just running around the stage, jumping from instrument to instrument. It's just
a lot of bands.
I could do a whole podcast just on the show. It was just incredible. I mean, and my best friend Harry came with us, so he used to come to the shows when we were younger. So it was just a nostalgic thing and just a ton of fun.
Nice.
Yeah. And shout out to you. We have Clear, and we skipped the entire line at Barclays Center and got in the side door. So that was clutch.
Yeah, dude. So I was just going to say a lot of bands do that. I know Sublime did that. They replaced Brad Noel recently, maybe a few years ago, and they've been doing concerts. So look, somebody passed away. The band still wants to play together, and they're changing their sound. It sounds pretty cool. I'm glad you got to go. But hockey's back.
I made a joke recently that like all these bands and like all like the old flavors and like all the things we ate as kids are now coming back. It's like, oh, all these 35-year-old kids all have money now, so let's take advantage of that and let's make them spend their money, So it's like all the old stuff that we used to listen to, everything's coming back. Blink-182 is like huge again. It's like,
dude, I went to Cracker Barrel this weekend and they had Chuckles. Remember those?
Yeah, of course. We talked about this
anywhere anymore.
Whenever I see them, I buy them, but they don't come with the little cardboard thing anymore.
No, but I always take a Coach. Whenever I see them, I buy them, and I'm like, "These are Coach Ed loves these things," and I get them, and I'm like, "They're okay,"
My father used to, but this is before gummy bears or anything. So that was like when I was a kid. My father would be like, "Get me the Chuckles."
Unbelievable. So we had some hockey this weekend. Rangers are back. They played their first preseason game in Boston. Not many, guys expected to make the team play. The Kakko, Hedl, Cooley line played. VC was in the lineup. Brodzinski was in the lineup. Schneider. But other than that, it was guys expected to be in Hartford or prospects. But, I just want to say quickly, I don't know if you guys caught the game, but Victor Mancini stood out to me. I mean, he looked awesome, putting the puck towards the net. I know he scored the goal, but he had a couple other shots that were pretty smart plays where he was looking for a deflection or a carom off the boards. He looked pretty good defensively. Hedl looked good too. He played with speed. He didn't shy away from contact, and he finally scored his first goal since 22-23. Remember last year he only played 10 games. He had no goals in the playoffs either, so he didn't score a goal last year. So I think that's probably a good sign that he just puts one in the net. Let's get that out of the way, and then he can hopefully start the year hot. But it's going to be an interesting training camp to see some of these guys who might not make the team right out of the gate, but probably will contribute at some point during the season. Mancini, to me, looked good. Did you guys check him out? Did you see the game at all? You're on mute, buddy. Little Ed always goes on mute, Coach. You saw the goal, Mancini's goal?
I saw the highlight. I saw him. I mean, what stands out to me is he looks like he's tall. It's incredible.
He's a big kid.
Obviously, obviously I didn't follow him, but he doesn't look like he's small out there at all amongst these trees.
No, he's 6'4", 220, right-handed D. So, look, just something to keep in mind when Jacob Trouba inevitably, is traded at the end of the season, that we might have a kid here who can step into that third pair and Schneider moves up, kind of like Schneider did himself. So,
it kind of looks like that's like he's 6'4", 220. That's pretty much Trouba, right?
Yeah, for sure. So I was pretty excited about that. So Little Ed, you're back. Did you check out Mancini?
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. The button, I swear, did not say I was muted on the screen, so I'm not sure. I must have hit something on my keyboard. But anyway, yeah, I watched the game yesterday. I was me and Lindsay have been crushing it in the workshop again. Shout out to the Suitors Sweet Treats. They have like a trade show this weekend, so they asked us to send down some of our goods so that to help them sell and attract some eyes to the table. So thank you very much for, I guess, hosting our items or help sell our items down there in Tennessee, and hopefully we have some Tennessee customers. So we sent down a lot of different designs. But I watched the game. It was a great game. It's like it's not hard to watch. That's not the right word, but like you want to take it with a grain of salt, right? I mean, if the team loses, at the end of the world, but it's nice that they won. But when you want to take the positives, like you're saying, the Mancini, the Hedl. I mean, obviously Hedl, he should be the best player on the ice, and he was, so it's a good thing. Agreed. It's kind of like an AHL game, and if Hedl's in the AHL, he should be dominating. And that's.
I guess I'm gonna have to watch it now.
No, Hedl looked really good, but like
it was nice that he wasn't shying away from contact.
He played against prospects, and like you're saying, who cares about the result? We're looking at the individual performances. So those two guys, Hedl and Mancini, were pretty damn good. We also got some news today. I saw posted on X. Our old friend Tony D'Angelo has signed with SKA. So Tony's going to Russia. I guess couldn't get himself a contract. I know he he was actually on, a friend of the podcast, Johnny Lazarus. He was on his podcast earlier in the summer, and talked pretty openly about his time with the Rangers on that show. But I guess no team out there is looking for an offensive right-handed defenseman that probably would come relatively cheaply. So I mean, look, I think he's going to he's probably going to set records in the KHL for defensemen scoring points.
Either that or he's going to get into a fight with some old school Russian guy or he's going to run his mouth about Putin, not to get political, but he's an idiot.
Well, he's going to get the gas though. I mean, he's going to get the.
I would be shocked. I would be shocked if it doesn't lead to some controversy.
He's going to get access to the gas.
Maybe Nick will have something to say about him.
You got to remember, there's no freedom of press over there. So,
yeah. Speaking
how's he going to be on Twitter when he's? How's he going to be on Twitter when he's there?
No, there's no Nick? Twitter. Let's bring Nick on though. What's up, Nick?
Nothing much. I feel like this is the perfect place to drop in at. I mean, Tony DeAngelo over in the KHL is certainly. I mean, it's going to be a story no matter what. No matter whether it goes good or not, it's going to be a story.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be crazy. I know as a Penguins fan, you dealt with him on the Rangers, on the Flyers, on the Hurricanes, in division. So I'm sure you
didn't have to deal with him on your team, so that's good.
Right.
I mean, there were some people in Pittsburgh that were calling for it, believe it or not. And I looked at the right side of the defense and I said, okay, is anybody going to play defense? But fortunately, management didn't see eye to eye with some of the fan base.
So Nick, you're still hosting Tip of the Iceberg podcast, right? And I saw you're doing some writing. I think it was Sports Illustrated, right?
Yeah, for Breakaway on SI, which is their new national site. I continue to write Penguin stuff because it's my bread and butter, and it's what gets me up in the morning. So I write Penguin stuff, but it's just for the national site over there for Sports Illustrated. So it's a nice little side thing. But the podcast is the bread and butter going into year 6. Of the podcast. So it's crazy that we're going that long, and
us too, right? We're running the same time. I think we're going to year 6, right? Cuz I think so.
I have no idea. It feels like I've been doing this since I was like 13 because I just haven't been recording it. So I don't really know. It's year 25 for me or something. But so where can they catch out your articles? Well, you said it's national. So are you writing only Penguin stuff, or are you writing league wide?
Yeah, I have the ability to write national if I want. I wrote a nice article on the Devils earlier in the summer, but I typically stick around the Penguins because they want an article for every podcast we do, and at that point, that's 3 articles a week. So if I get around to writing more about it, especially with the season starting, I'll probably try to write a little bit of my opinions about everybody around the league. But I do stick to Penguins for the most part, and that's at Breakaway on SI. If you just search Breakaway in Google, you can find that. Or, if you follow me on Twitter at Nick Belsky, I post every single article there, so that makes it even easier.
Yeah, definitely give Nick a follow. Podcast is great. So you're recording 3 times a week?
Yeah, we do
during the season.
Oh no, we used to do 5, and we had to cut that back. But all year round now, we do Tuesday and Thursday full episodes, and then Wednesday afternoons I go live and get a little bit of Q&A back and forth with the fan base to see what they're thinking, because a lot of the times, you guys probably know, they want answers to questions that we're not even thinking about. So there's sometimes it's nice to get those questions and see what everybody else is thinking about, not just us.
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. It's probably, it's good to do it multiple times a week because you can kind of hone in on the games. Especially if they play like Monday and Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, that's cool. So, check out Nick's podcast, check out his writing. But let's talk Penguins, since this is your bread and butter, as you said. Going into last year, I want to talk about a little bit about expectations. And, you guys, the Penguins came off a Game 7 loss to the Rangers. They were up 3-1 in that series. They go into the season, probably a little bit of confidence, I would think, right, with Erik Karlsson coming in. And I remember listening to like 32 Thoughts, and everyone was guessing the power play would be like 50% success rate, but it didn't really turn out that way. So just generally going into the season, what were the expectations of Penguins fans, and then kind of where did it go wrong? Yeah,
I mean, there was a lot of excitement because you bring in, as you mentioned, a guy that's coming off of 100 points Norris Trophy. You're thinking, all right, well, our offensive issues are solved, especially the power play, which had been kind of teetering around that 14th to 15th place in the NHL mark. And we're saying, all right, if we get a top 10, top 5 power play, they're back in the playoffs and they're a dangerous team. But unfortunately, as you mentioned, it didn't go that way. In fact, it was the complete opposite. The worst power play we've seen of the entire Crosby era. Karlsson at times looked very complacent at the point, which is where they gave up a lot of penalty kill goals and shorthanded goals. So, going into the season, though, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of excitement, a little bit of trepidation because the goaltending, with Tristan Jarry, what he came off of, Alex Nedeljkovic, they really banked on him coming over from Detroit. So there's a little bit of trepidation with that and the depth scoring. But, when you had Karlsson and you got him as late in the summer as you did, you got him August 6th. And then Crosby's birthday was August 7th. And then a month later, boom, you're in training camp. Everybody got really excited because of that. And shortly after that, it went downhill after a slow start.
You think that's partially because we experienced that when we got Patrick Kane? It was just, you can only handle the puck so much, So now you're taking the puck off of Crosby's stick. You're taking the puck off of Malkin's stick. And was there any kind of rumors that they were like bickering who wanted the puck? And no, I can't see Crosby doing that, but maybe Malkin.
Yeah, the problem was actually the opposite. I think the Penguins were looking for Erik Karlsson to come in and quarterback this power play and be the guy up at the point, facilitating each way. But it seemed like he was almost tepid in that. It seemed like he was trying to overforce the puck to Malkin and Crosby and try to set them up versus kind of just taking what the penalty killing unit gives you. And I think that was part of the problem. Too much. Exactly. Trying to just be Chris Letang when realistically they have a Chris Letang, and he can, if they wanted a Chris Letang, they'd put Letang on the first unit. They needed Karlsson to be himself. They needed him to take control. And I just don't think he did that enough last year. And hence the reason it was kind of a power play without a leader because nobody wanted to take command. Crosby has never really been the commander in chief on the power play. It's kind of always run through Malkin, and Crosby's been down low and just kind of makes do with what happens towards him. But, last year, it seemed like nobody really wanted to take command of the power play. And you saw that opposing teams took advantage night in and night out. And it was bad.
I just can't believe with that kind of a talent and that kind of a team that they didn't figure it out. I mean, I could see them going. I could see them going. Yeah, I could see them going in a rut for 20 games, 30 games. But you would think they would figure it out with that kind of hockey IQ on the ice.
Yeah. I mean,
that's what amazed me that they never got. I get that it was stuttered a little bit, but
no, I mean, watching it day in and day out, and that's the only thing anybody wanted to talk about. How are they going to fix the power play? How are they going to fix the power play? And it's like, listen, if 3 Hall of Famers and Mike Sullivan can't figure it out, I don't know what you expect me to say on here. I mean, guys, there's you can't put more talent on the ice than you have on your first power play unit, and yet they couldn't even be. And it's not even. They couldn't even be top 20. They couldn't even be top 30. They were 31st in the league for the majority of the season. It was baffling. I mean, you watch the games and you're wondering, like, what happens when they get the power play? And it got to the point where you'd get a power play and everybody would just roll their eyes and they'd be like, oh, crap. We're either going to not score or give up a goal here. Well, there was no thought of we're going to actually score a goal on this power play.
And those struggles led to before we move on from Erik Karlsson, I got to prompt Little Ed to talk a little more about Erik Karlsson because he loves Erik Karlsson. He's like his favorite player. So before I change the topic, So I'll do it for him. What is your opinion?
You're bait to say something, but I don't know what you want me to say.
He's not taking the bait. It's all right. What is your opinion?
I have a question, but go ahead.
Of him defensively, forget the power play. I mean, do you think he's adequate, below average, but like just watching him game in and game out? What is your thought?
He kind of already chirped that.
Yeah.
I mean, defensively, I will say early in the season, better than I expected because he actually seemed almost average defensively, which I was like, that's great. But his offensive numbers were suffering because of it. So again, it was kind of you're trying to fit in with Mike Sullivan's system and the Penguins when that's taking away from the reason we got you. But for the most of the season, you saw it start to, the filter started to get a little bit less. The attempt to fit in got to be a little bit less, and the defense went off the hill, especially late in the season. That's when we got prime Erik Karlsson, which was no defense. I mean, maybe 1 or 2 stick checks a game. That's all you're getting. but we were also getting game-winning goals. We were also getting 3-assist games. We were also getting, ridiculous high IQ, hockey IQ plays when puck is on his stick. So at that point, you look at it and you say, I guess that's what we need. I mean, I guess we just need him to forget about trying to be good defensively, because it's not his strong suit. We all know that. Go out there and put him with somebody like a Marcus Pettersson and allow him to try to make up for all Karlsson's defensive mistakes.
See, I don't even have to say it. Nick just
That's a lot of pressure.
Like we're finally talking to someone who watches him every night or talks about him 3 times a week.
We bring on too many level-headed guests on this show. It's hard to get clicks. But anyway,
well, on the topic of like the core 4, I don't know if you remember our episode last year when we had John. I kind of not chirped you, but kind of said like I'd be shocked if all 4 of those guys are healthy for the entire season all at the same time or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And I heard recently that it actually happened, right? I don't think they were ever. None of them were ever out, like 2 of them at the same time or whatever. However you want to word that, right?
Yeah. Something Crosby and Malkin played all 82. Letang played all 82. And I think Karlsson missed 2 games. So,
So
the
even
core 4 was healthy. So the core 4 had no issues. And really, you add on to that, Marcus Pettersson didn't miss much of the season. He was huge for them all season long. Their goaltending really didn't have any injury issues. So you can't blame last year on injuries. You can blame it on depth, and a lot of people will blame it on the power play, and that's the reason that Todd Reirden got his pink slip at the end of the year. No matter how much Mike Sullivan didn't want to give it to him, Kyle Dubas and company decided it's time for a change there. So they got rid of Reirden, and this is the time that Coach Ed says, you know what, I don't want to hear about Reirden anymore.
Yeah, he's like,
he's got to go. He's got to go.
So David Quinn comes in to fix up the power play. We know David Quinn pretty well. I wasn't very impressed with him as a head coach, but maybe in a more, nuanced role with a more focused approach to a specific part of the game, he'll be better and make him a better coach long term. I know he's friends with Sullivan, right?
Oh yeah,
they went to college or something.
I mean, Quinn looks like the great value brand of Mike Sullivan. If you ever put them like side by side, they're the same person, and they went to college together. So
right, that's what they played together.
They did, up in Boston. So, I mean, you look at that and you say, all right, I mean, it's an interesting hire. You're hoping it works. But I think the big thing with Quinn that everybody kind of circled was his work with elite offensive defensemen. Obviously, he had Karlsson for that 100-point season that I referenced earlier. Early, whenever he was with New York, he had Adam Fox early in his career, and he kind of shepherded his growth in the NHL level. So, they're hoping bringing him in reignites what they had in Karlsson and San Jose, and also takes Chris Letang to another level. He's 37 years old this year, so you're hoping to get something that you haven't seen out of him. It's going to take a new voice, which, that might take a lot more than that, but that's what they're hoping.
And how many years does Letang have? Another 4 years or something like that on his deal?
He's played 2, so he's still got 4 years left. So he still has more years left even after the extension than Crosby, which I know we'll get to. But that to me I was like, oh,
that's crazy.
That's a stark reality that smacks you in the face real quick.
Yeah, that's rough. But, you guys did lose a core piece last year because of the struggles. Jake Gensel goes to Carolina and then ultimately signs with Tampa Bay in the offseason. What was your impression of the return? Because, I mean, look, Kyle Dubas trying to put a stamp on Pittsburgh. I guess they identified that salary cap-wise, they weren't going to be able to pay him. Mm-hmm. What was your initial reaction to the return in that deal?
Yeah, the initial reaction was, all right, it seems like he got a return. Of course, I didn't know much about the prospects. I knew about Bunting, but again, there was that, can he do what he did when he was with Matthews? So far, so good through 21 games. But the initial reaction was, well, he got a lot of pieces. And I know, a lot of Penguins fans weren't happy because he didn't get multiple firsts or he didn't get the first that they wanted. Actually, I don't think they got, at the end of the day, because it was conditional, I don't think they got a first-round pick at all for Jake Gensel. But at the end of the day, you also look at what you gave up, and you gave up a second-round exit to the Carolina Hurricanes for 2 pretty good prospects, a draft pick, and Michael Bunting, who seems like a guy that's going to be here for the next couple of years and play a pretty important role on the second line.
And half the price. And I remember before I let Little Ed and Coach Ed talk, because I don't want to take up the whole episode, but I remember the rumors of the Rangers trying to get him. And it was what Pittsburgh wanted: Kakko, a first, Othman, Perreault, yeah, et cetera. And Rangers fans are like, do it. And then I see the return from
Do
Carolina.
it. Who said do it?
The people online.
I mean, I would have taken it.
Coach, you don't go on Twitter. You know,
thank God.
It was nuts. It was nuts
about what they wanted to give up for Gensel fans. And then I see the return with Carolina, and I'm like, either these insiders just try to jack up prices for these other teams by including the Rangers, and this was never going to happen, or Dubas really just hates Drury and was demanding like the entire farms. I don't know, but that was
it's also just clickbait to a certain
so I feel
extent.
I feel like it made it like underwhelming, you know. I was like, oh, that's it after what they wanted from the Rangers. So I don't know if there was anything like that on the Pittsburgh side where the rumors were kind of hyping up what the return would be, and then maybe it was disappointing.
Yeah, and there was a little bit of that.
Not to jump too far ahead of like into the Crosby extension, but like if he signs that team friendly deal, why do the Penguins even give up Gensel at that point? If they had to have known at that point that Crosby was going to sign the cheaper deal.
I mean,
they had room for him to sign.
Yeah, they had some room, but at the same time, at some point or other, I mean, this is a team that has missed the playoffs the last 2 seasons, or at least they missed it one season, and they were well on their way to missing it last year when they ended up trading Gensel. At some point, you got to cut the cord with some of these players, or you're going to suffer the fate that we've seen with Detroit, the fate that we've seen with what is the other team that I always look at, Chicago, where they hold on to their players too long, trying to extend a window that just clearly isn't open, and they end up with no pieces for their rebuild, and they end up taking so much longer to come back around. I mean,
isn't that what you were saying with Letang though?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit different for the simple reason that the organization values having those 3 players finish their careers in Pittsburgh, and they look at a player like Jake Gensel is probably one of their best trade pieces. And this year, I think you're going to have similar conversations with Marcus Pettersson. Is it great to keep him? Yeah, it'd be great to extend Marcus Pettersson. But is there going to be a more valuable piece that they have on their roster than a left shot defenseman that can shut other teams down, play top minutes, penalty kill, block shots, and be a big body down towards playoff time? No, there's probably not going to be a better trade piece. And what you get back for him is going to help you, as Dubas always says this, close the gap between this contention window, which they believe there's a little bit left of, and the next contention window, which is what they're really trying to do. I mean, he's gone as far as to kind of calling out the Rangers and saying that's kind of the status, and the way we want to do this is quickly rebuild this and become a contender once again, like a serious contender, not just, squeaking into the playoffs and hoping that Crosby can then make noise because he's there.
I don't think my look at it is, I don't think Gensel is as good as that value of the money he got. I feel that they feel if Crosby was gone in 3 years, Gensel's got to play 4 or 5 years without him, and I don't think I want to see what he does in Tampa.
Well, he's got great
Kucherov.
players.
Yeah, he'll have Kucherov, but you know what I'm saying? I don't think on his own he's going to be that building block.
I'm not agreeing.
I think he's part of Crosby's success.
Yeah, personally. I'm with Coach. I mean, I know it's a small sample size, but him on Carolina didn't impress me.
Really?
No,
didn't he have like over 1.5 points per game to finish?
Not
off
to the
season?
point. I mean, yeah, he's Jake Gensel, but like what Coach is
saying,
he's
a Ranger killer too, so it's
yeah. I don't know.
I mean, skewed a little bit.
Yes, he's a very good player, but I think it's like it's just overshot. I think a little.
Yeah.
bit.
So with Gensel, the way I look at Gensel is he's he's not an elite player. I wouldn't even put him maybe even in that second tier, but he's probably in that third tier of players in the league, below the elite, the top 10, 15 guys. And then there's another tier. And then I got Gensel right below that, like a true first line player, but not necessarily, a perennial elite guy. He's a complimentary first liner who can be a star with the right guys. Right. So, I mean,
that's interesting to see him at full season without Crosby for sure.
Yeah. Well, if he plays with Kucherov, he's going to score 40 goals. So it's just, I mean, Kucherov, how many assists did he have last year? Kucherov, like 100 assists or something.
Yeah.
Something crazy, but we'll see. Anyway, yeah, you're right though. You can't just sign everybody. The salary cap exists. You got Bunting at half the price and a pick, and change it up, change the look of the team. It's an interesting.
What you're saying is they're not really looking to win, I guess, in the next year or two. It's more a little bit more in the future.
Yeah,
I was looking at it the other way. Is like if you're going to sign Crosby, you're signing him to build immediately, and that's why give up his top wing.
yeah. I mean, what they're trying to do
You're
is
saying
impossible. I mean, and they're trying to kind of step in both lanes. But when you look at what Dubas did, there was only really one move that he made that was pure. Hey, let's help this year. Let's really elevate the bar this year, and that was the McGroarty trade, and that was a trade of it popped up. You make the deal because you need to make the deal. Everything else was, they took on Kevin Hayes to get a draft pick. They took on Cody Glass to get a draft pick. They signed a lot of these, 27, 28-year-olds to 1-year deals. So a lot of this is, hey, let's roll the dice on some of these things. But as far as the future is concerned, we're not giving anything away. You're not signing any 3-year deals. You're not signing any massive deals. You're not really making any splash moves because what you're trying to do is acquire as much draft capital as you can to kickstart that rebuild while putting some semblance of a team around Crosby and just saying, hey, if you can do it, you can do it. If you can't, we can't really, risk giving rid of a first-round pick or paying $9 million for another player.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What is your feeling? What was your feeling when they were bringing Dubas over, being that I guess he didn't have success in Toronto? That was my first part. After you answer that, I have a second part.
Yeah, well, you have to remember, who was the general manager before Dubas? I was happy to see anybody else walk through that door than Ron Hextall. As far as I was concerned, anybody that has any prior experience was better than Hextall. So with Dubas coming in, I did like it because it felt like it was new. We had Rutherford, which was old school hockey guy. We had Hextall, who was old school hockey guy. It felt like the Penguins had been kind of stuck in that mentality for a little too long. Bringing in Dubas would bring in a kind of a fresh mentality in that. His first plan did not work, but we'll see how plan, or at least part 2 of this plan works because he's kind of changed up the face of the organization 1 year in after he already changed it a lot last year too.
Now, my second part of the question would be, do you think Mike Sullivan has a big say in the building of the team and who they pick and who they trade for, or, compared to other GMs?
I think he has a little bit more sway in that room than a lot of other coaches do. I think when you look at we just talked about it a little bit earlier, the David Quinn hiring, they're best buds. So whenever you're getting rid of a guy like Reardon, who reportedly Mike Sullivan was banging on the table, we do not need to get rid of Todd. We don't need to get rid of Todd. Well, Dubas overrules him. They get rid of Todd Reardon, and then they bring in Sullivan's best friend. So it's like, all right, did you really overrule him, or did you say, hey, well, Quinn's right there, so we could go that direction? But you look at some of the players they brought in. Kevin Hayes just screams Mike Sullivan guy. Anthony Beauvillier screams Mike Sullivan guy. So it feels like there is a good dialogue between coach and GM, and it does feel like Sullivan has a lot of sway when it comes to the type of player, the archetype that they're looking for, and that Kyle Dubas goes out and gets.
I could just see his the look on his face he has on the bench, like in the GM meeting. Just like that look, chewing gum, ready to just tear it. I love him. I love him.
Yeah, he's a great coach. And, remember, he was a Rangers assistant coach. I forgot to who, but I think the Rangers ended up firing their coach the year after. And ever since he's been hired by Pittsburgh, those 2 cups and all that, every year it's like, well, the Penguins let Sullivan go. The Rangers are ready to hire him. They're just waiting to rehire him. He's a great coach. But, you mentioned McGroarty. I wanted to ask you about him. So, he Rucker McGroarty, a prospect for the Winnipeg Jets, U.S.-born kid. I think he was like a 15th overall pick or something like that in the first round a few years ago. Just decides, I want a path to the NHL. I'm not going to sign with Winnipeg. I don't see it. And then Pittsburgh goes and gets him, gives up Yeager, who I think was a first-round pick for Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah, they were both 14th overall. Crazy enough.
Right. Yeah. So kind of just like a swap of prospects. You kind of indicated you thought that was a move for this year. Is that because you think McGroarty's more ready than Yeager? Do you think he's guaranteed a spot to start the year?
I don't know if I'd guarantee him a spot for the simple reason that he is one of the only players that is on this training camp roster that can go through waivers without having to worry about it. He's waivers exempt. Whereas, a guy like Puljujarvi, who scored a hat trick over the weekend. If they want to see more from him, McGroarty might be the guy that gets sent down. But I think if that happens, it's not going to take long for him to get that opportunity. And that's exactly why they made this trade, Ed, because, they liked Braden Yeager. They loved Braden Yeager and everything he brought, but he's going to go back to junior this year, and he might not be ready at the early portion of next year. Whereas if the Penguins wanted that quick installation of youth, you're going to do that by bringing over McGroarty, who they believe is ready now, and he certainly has the build to be ready to play against men. It's just a matter of whether or not he's going to be able to catch up to the speed of the game, and that's what they're trying to figure out over the next couple of weeks.
I always find it interesting when moves like this are made, and it seems like a GM has another GM over a barrel. Like Winnipeg has their hands tied. McGroarty not going to sign with them. Could become an unrestricted free agent at some point if he doesn't, sign because he's a college hockey player. And then, Pittsburgh actually offers a good piece for him. And it seems like they maybe didn't have to do that, but I always find that interesting. There's like a lot of goodwill between these GMs where they win the deal. I feel like Pittsburgh wins that deal, but, Winnipeg gets a decent little player. The Rangers did the same thing when they got Fox. At the time, he only was going to sign with New York. And then they're like, we'll give you 2 seconds, right? They could have maybe gave him like a fifth, because honestly, a fifth is better than him walking to the Rangers in a few months or whatever. But it ended up being like 2 seconds. So you just see there's a lot of goodwill between GMs. I think at least. But Cody Glass, you said that was like they took on a draft. They got a draft pick for taking him, but I think that was a sneaky good move. Honestly, he was a former first-round pick. Put him with Crosby or Malkin and see if he could catch lightning in a bottle, man. Right? I mean,
that's 100% it, because you look at what he used to be when he was a prospect, and he was thought to be a guy that could come in and become a top 6 guy in the National Hockey League, and it didn't work out in Vegas for some reason. Didn't work out in Nashville, and we saw what they tried to do this offseason. They're really trying to kind of gear up and go, bringing in guys like Stamkos and Marchessault, and they just needed that $2 million in cap space. And Kyle Dubas said, hey, we have cap space. Throw us over a pick, and we'll clear that right up for you. And in exchange, you get a 25-year-old that, with a change of scenery, who knows what he could be. This is a guy that was my biggest question mark going into training camp, because I looked at it and I said, well, how do the Penguins view him? Do they view him as a guy that could potentially be their third-line center? Do they view him as a guy that could play with Malkin or Crosby at some point this season? Or do they just view him as a guy that is going to cost $2 million, and in a year we're going to say, all right, see ya. We got the draft pick. Thanks for your year of service. And that's it. So that's the biggest question to me. Early in camp, it looks like they're looking at him as more of like a depth piece, a depth winger for them. But, his storyline is going to be one that's most interesting to follow along with, because I feel like the potential is still there with this kid. It's just a matter of, will they put him in position to be able to unlock it and to reach it? And that's something that, we talk about Mike Sullivan and how everybody regards him as one of the best in hockey. That's the one thing over the last couple of years that he hasn't really done a lot of, is he's kind of leaned towards the veterans, the more proven guys, and not given some of these guys the opportunity to grow into what they can be. So does that change this year because of the kind of focus shift in the organization? We'll see. But if he does, I think Cody Glass is one of the players that could benefit from it.
Yeah, I agree. Coach, we're going to talk a little Sidney Crosby now. So Crosby, 8 points. Well, I'm curious what you think before we ask Nick. Crosby, $8.7 million. Nick, how long was his deal? 12 years? Before
it
this?
Was the last one he signed was a 12-year deal.
This is before they made the rule that you can only sign for 8 years. So he had a 12-year deal at $8.7 million. When he signed it, it was obviously a lot bigger percentage of the cap than it is now. But he re-ups for 3 years, $8.7 million. Coach, early in Crosby's career, I feel like a lot of Rangers fans didn't respect Crosby, even hated him, dare I say. Thought he was whiny, etc.
I was one of them.
But look at this move by him, captain of the team, signs through a rebuild, takes less than he probably could get if he really wanted to demand it. I think he had 40 goals last year. True leader, the maturity of Crosby throughout his career. I mean, Rangers fans now, what's your position on Sidney Crosby? I'm curious.
Well, as a hockey fan, I still hate when they play him. I don't like the way he plays in certain situations. but as a hockey person, I mean, he's the standard. That's how Will Clark used to talk about Keith Hernandez when he used to say, "Do you think you're better at first base?" And he said, "No, Hernandez is the standard that I strive to be," and that's the example he sets. I mean, we talked about it last week. Just watching him, he's going to season ticket holders' doors and giving them their season tickets when he could be just doing whatever the hell he wants. He could say, let Carlson earn his keep and you do it, But he's still doing it. He's part of the whole culture in Pittsburgh. It's great to see. It doesn't happen often in this day and age.
Yeah, Nick, curious if you've been watching the Penguins pretty much your whole life, right? So, Crosby, do you agree with that assessment that maybe early in his career, a little maturity issues on the ice, never really anything off the ice for Crosby, I'll say that. But as far as on the ice and now it's just I feel like he's the pure example of a leader now that Bergeron is retired. Like if you had to tell me who's the best leader in hockey right now, I'd probably say Crosby.
It's not even a question.
I mean, early in his career, I can see where everybody points to. I mean, everybody, especially that Philadelphia game where Darian Hatcher cross checks him across the teeth, and he's over there complaining to the refs with blood coming out of his mouth. Yeah, early in his career, he had a lot to say, and he wanted the game to be called right down the middle. That's not how the game was called in 2006. It's not how the game was called in 2007, 8, or 9. You're going to take some hits, especially if you're a young kid. You got to earn that opportunity for them to make those calls. That's how the game was. And I think Crosby, the way he thinks is, if it's a penalty, call it a penalty. The way it is, if it's a penalty, call it a penalty. That's not how the NHL was. Now, there's a little bit of an overcorrection, if you ask me. There's some times where I'm saying, all right, these are some very, very weak calls, and everybody gets the calls. Whereas back then, you had to earn them. And Crosby, he didn't like that very much. So I understand why everybody called him that. But, I mean, as far as, people would take it a step further and be like, he's not even that good. I said, well, that's where you're wrong. He's going to complain. He's going to be a little annoying. But he's certainly good enough to earn the opportunity to be able to do it. Now, is it annoying when he does it? Yes. And he was annoying early in his career for a lot of fan bases, and I get it because he complained a lot. But he backed it up. Whenever he did it, I told you that Hatcher game, who scored the overtime winner in that game? Sidney Crosby. So as long as he backed it up, we had no issue with it.
Well, no question about his on-ice performance. I mean, right, Little Ed? I mean, I don't think any Ranger fan, when you were younger and Crosby came up, were you ever saying he's not good? I don't remember saying that.
No, you hate him because he is that good. I mean, you don't. What?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
No, yeah, you hate him because he is that good. I mean, when Crosby came in, I mean, I was in college. I mean, obviously, I was a much different frame of mind and bitter and whatever. I mean, obviously, you're gonna hate a little whiny kid that's almost the same age as you, on the ice and whatever. I mean, but now you look at him and it's just respect. Him signing that deal still, it's just unbelievable. I mean, I guess my question is all you hear is about the NHLPA, certain guys have to sign for this, otherwise they're going to screw up everything around the league. How come Sidney Crosby still gets to just sign for 8.7? Bergeron gets to do whatever he wants. Right. And then we have Capo Caco has to demand this, and Laffy's got to demand that, and otherwise, it's what the hell? But yeah, I love Crosby now that I'm older and can respect the game and just see the big picture, of course. And he's just incredible. But I mean, back to the contract thing. How does that, if he signed that extension, prior to say Letang's contract, how does Letang take what he took for the years that he signed for when he knows Crosby's going to be setting the example? It's to me, that whole situation bothers me a little bit. And I can't imagine you as a Penguins fan.
Yeah, the one thing with the years is, and you see this and hear this from those three guys in particular, whenever somebody asks them about the other's contract, they try to say as much as they can, we don't discuss that. Do I believe that? No, I think it comes up in conversation. It does from time to time. But I think the one thing that they all understand is they respect each other's longevity. They respect how long they want to play the game. Malkin didn't want to play another 6 years. He wanted to play another 4, and that was a big to-do because the reports were Hextall was saying, we're giving you 3, we won't give you 4. And Malkin was saying, literally all I want is 4 years. I want that 4th year just in case. Well, he gets it. Letang gets what he wants. And I think longevity-wise, nobody in Pittsburgh is really offended based on what these guys wanted, because when you look at Letang, I mean, talent-wise, no, he's nowhere near Crosby, and he took that pay cut. He went down from 7.5 to 6.1, and that's what you care about if you're a Penguins fan. As long as you're out there continuing to play at a high level and continuing to be healthy, and the legs don't go, which for Malkin it has a little bit, but that's why he took a shorter deal. For Letang, like I mentioned, he played, I think, all 82 games last year. Now, he had some injuries, and it affected his play towards the end of the year. But if he can go out there and play, then go out there and play. The guy is in the best shape of any 38-year-old, 37-year-old that I've ever seen. And he's one of the most, physical freaks in the entire NHL. So longevity-wise, I don't think anybody's really offended, because he's been able to go out there and back it up on the ice. The one thing that everybody wants to look at, and Crosby said it years ago when he was on Chicklets, because they asked about him taking a pay cut, and he says that it doesn't work if only one guy does it. So when you see Malkin going from $9.5 million a year to 6.1, when you see Letang going from 7.5 to 6.1, and you see these guys taking pay cuts just to stick around, it shouldn't have come as a surprise that Crosby was like, all right, I'll take 8.7, which is still, staying there is still a like $4 million pay cut based on what he could have got. He probably could have gotten 12 and nobody would have batted an eye.
Right.
But he stays there for 8.7, and he just continues to, practice what he preaches and set the example for the entire organization. And I think that's what fans look at, especially where they are now, and especially with, what he said is the reasoning that he had to think about the years, which is he doesn't want to leave the Penguins in a situation where he can't go anymore and they're stuck with his cap hit. So he's going 2 more years, adds on to that, and thinks, that's how much I can play, because they asked him point blank on the, like, as Coach had said, on the back porch of some guy in Moon Township's, house where they had the media conference after he signed. He said, what was the hardest part? He said, trying to project out how long I think I can do this at a high level. He said, because if I'm doing this as a shell of myself, I'm not doing a service to my team at that point. So, to see him talk like that still 20 years in, when, again, he deserves so much more, it's, again, continues to be insane how much of a role model he is for this team, this organization, and the city.
I mean, let's face it, those 3 guys you're talking about, they'll be Pittsburgh people for life. They'll have jobs with the Penguins. They're going to earn more money. They don't, you know what I'm saying? They're set, and their families are set. They'll have a job with the Penguins for $1 million a year just to show up at the freaking arena. You know what I'm saying? They'll find something for them to do, scouting.
Well, Crosby will be him if he wants to be.
He'll do whatever he wants. But I'm saying they're not going to worry about their post-career job, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I think a little bit. Yeah. I think a little bit of it is team culture, right? We saw this with the Bruins for years. Everybody taking pay cuts and trying to win a Stanley Cup and having won a Stanley Cup, knowing what it takes. The other side of it, I think, is when you have homegrown talent, it's easier to control the salary cap. For example, with the Rangers, our highest paid player in the Rangers is Artemi Panarin. He's almost at $12 million a year. He was a free agent signing. He did take less to sign with the Rangers technically, but that's still one of the highest cap hits in the NHL. So you have the Rangers willing to spend $11.6 million on Panarin when it's Lafreniere's turn to get paid and Shesterkin's turn to get paid. The bar is Panarin at $11.6 million, signed when the cap was whatever it was when Panarin signed it, versus if they didn't have Panarin and Lafreniere, for example, was the focal point, they would be able to lock him in long-term to a reasonable deal. And then he would be the bar for all the other players that sign contracts, and you're able to control your cap a little better. So I'm curious to see what Panarin does. His deal's up in 2 years. Is he going to leave as a free agent, or does he want to stay with the Rangers? And is he willing to do what Malkin did and go from 9.5 to 6.1? Maybe Panarin will take 8 on a 3-year deal or something to stay with the Rangers, which would help. But I don't know. I mean, I think a little bit is that Crosby signed that deal for 12 years, and who's going to take more than Sidney Crosby? And I know Malkin did, right, for a couple, 0.8 mil or whatever it was, but it was right there. And it's culture, man. It's team culture, and it's led by Crosby. But I don't know. You think Panarin will take less? What do you think, Nick?
I mean, It depends how close you are to a Stanley Cup, and it depends how important that is to Panarin. That's the thing, too. I mean, you guys have been knocking on the door the last couple of years. You've obviously had the President's Trophy winning team last year. If it comes up and they still haven't got it done, and he says, you know what, I want to do it here, maybe you do take that pay cut. But at the same time, who knows what everybody's individual aspirations are? Some people just say, give me the money because I need the money.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Malkin, what does famous Malkin say? 3 years Superliga.
3 years super. Yeah, exactly. He always liked to one up Crosby, even though, these guys have a friendly rivalry. So yeah, everybody always brings up 3 years Super League. And I mean, going into this year, you're 20. Malkin will
that
still.
Clip was, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say Malkin will still skate out right after Crosby and get to be last because that's what they did 20 years ago. That's what they're gonna do in 2024.
That clip was floating around recently, and I always got a kick of that. I remember watching the Road to the Winter Classic. That was right. It was, I think it was the HBO series Road to the Winter Classic, and they showed I think Crosby was a rookie, or was his second year, maybe his second year. Yeah. And they're just interviewing Crosby, and Crosby, they asked him about Malkin. He's like, "Oh yeah, he's great, whatever." He goes, "Yeah, and I always walked out last my entire career. I pat all my teammates down." Then they show Malkin pat Crosby, and then Crosby goes, and then Malkin follows him. He goes, "But I couldn't beat out Malkin because the thing he said to me was 3 years Superliga, because he played 3 years professional before he even came to the NHL. So he technically had seniority over Crosby, even though they're the same age, right? Or very close to the same age.
Malkin's a year older. He got drafted a year before, but being Russian and having to come over from Russia, he wasn't able to come over his first year. And Crosby looked at him. I think the quote Crosby said was, "I've played, I've been a pro longer than you." And Malkin went, no, 3 years, Super League. And Crosby said, okay.
That's funny. And, I got to say, before we talk about this year's expectations, the one thing about Malkin and Crosby, I mean, how lucky for Pittsburgh to get Malkin and Crosby back-to-back years, especially when the Rangers had such good odds to get Crosby in that draft. Whatever, I keep saying this, but the thing that impressed me the most about the two of them is they won the Cup
about
in
a bitter
09.
fan.
Well, we ended up with Mark Stahl in that draft, all right? They got Crosby. So
played 18 years in the NHL.
That's the luck of the draw. Anyway, so 09 they win the Cup, and then no cups, and then they win back-to-back cups in 16-17. I find that really impressive. I think that's probably very rare for two guys to play together on the same team to win a Stanley Cup and then go almost a decade without winning it with the same organization and then win two. I don't know if that's really happened. I mean, I'd be curious. Maybe Detroit, but I don't know. It's really impressive. But looking forward to this season now. You guys have made some changes. What are the expectations after last year going into this season?
I think when I'm going into this season, I look at this as, this is a team that all offseason has made moves in accordance with a rebuilding team. But you look at the team on paper, it's hard to argue that it's not better on paper than it was last year, because it is. I think obviously you wanted Riley Smith to work out. Obviously you wanted Rickard Rakell to play better, but you look at the team on paper, it looks like they have better depth. The goaltending is still a question mark because it's the same goaltending. They bring back Nedeljkovic for 2 more years, and they, reports are saying that they tried to get rid of Jare, but there was no takers, which I can believe. But you're hoping that holds up, and you're hoping that the defense holds up because it is majority of the same defense as well. And those were 2 big areas of question last year. And coming in this year, the way I look at it is this is a bubble playoff team simply because Crosby and Malkin demand it to be at the very least that. I don't think they're a lock to make the playoffs by any means, but I think if they get their act together, especially, we talked for a while about the power play, especially if they get their power play to be at least top 20 at this season, I think it's hard to deny that they'll be in and around that playoff picture come April.
Well, give us a little bit on Riley Smith. I should have brought this up earlier, I guess. The Rangers picked up Riley Smith from Pittsburgh for a second-round pick, probably some 16-year-old kid or 15-year-old kid out there right now, and a fifth. So, he's going to probably start the year with Kreider and Zibanejad. I know a lot of fans are interested to see if we can finally find a right wing for those two, especially at 5-on-5. So what are your thoughts on him and watching him last year? Did he have a down year? What do you think?
He definitely had a down year, but I just think it's because it wasn't the right fit in Pittsburgh. I don't think that that's anything that should transfer over to New York. I just think that when he came to Pittsburgh, one, he didn't want to leave Vegas. He had just won the Stanley Cup. He loved it in Vegas, and they traded him because that's what Vegas does. No matter how much they love you, they're going to trade you if it makes sense for their bottom line. So he didn't take that well. He got off to a hot start with Malkin, and then after that, it faded into nothing. He ended the year on the third line, couldn't really find his footing, and the Penguins, they couldn't risk spending that much money on a guy that didn't seemingly want to be there. But again, I don't know that for fact. I didn't speak to him in person, so I try not to hold that against him, but it just didn't fit on the ice either. And I think that's the biggest thing, because Riley Smith makes a lot of his success off the rush. That's where a lot of his offense comes. Penguins were the oldest team in the NHL. They weren't getting up the ice very quickly last year. And especially when you're playing next to Evgeny Malkin, who does not have his legs anymore. He's not getting up the ice very quickly, so you're not getting a lot of opportunities on the rush. Playing with a guy like Kreider, playing with like a guy with Zibanejad, I think he'll probably have a bounce back season. And it's going to sting for the Penguins, but at the end of the day, they recouped a second and a fifth, and I've said it multiple times. For a rebuilding team, whenever you can trade a third to get a guy, it doesn't work out, and you get a second and a fifth in return. That's decent asset management, but I do think it's going to sting whenever he does eventually have a good season for New York, because I just think it's a better fit for him, the way that he plays the game.
Yeah, that's interesting. If he's good off the rush, I don't know a lot about his game as far as, what kind of fit he'd have. So that's interesting. Yeah, that he would fit well, because that's all
they
Kreider
do.
and Zibanejad's offense. They have zero, in zone offense,
Zone
5-on-5. Yeah. So that maybe that'll work out.
Maybe that's why they went after
the
him.
Rangers. Yeah, that makes sense. I like the report. It gives me some hope. If you were going to tell me, oh, he's a good grinder and yada 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 and all that, I was going to say, but yeah, good off the rush. That'll fit right in with Mika. Anyway, so let's talk a little Rangers. Obviously you don't watch every game, but they won the President's Trophy last year. I don't think anyone predicted that, and they get all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals until the refs put their whistles away against Florida. So, what can they do better? I mean, do you think are they going to take that next step? The only thing better is winning a Stanley Cup, or I guess making the finals, right? Could possibly be considered better, but do you think they're going to do that, or do you think it's more likely they take a step back this season?
Regular season, 100%. I think they take a step back, just because it feels like that's what every President's Trophy team does. I mean, you were so good all season long last year. I mean, I understand Igor did not have a great year. He was surpassed by Jonathan Quick for a large portion of that season, where Jonathan Quick was the guy that was holding the fort down. I don't expect Shesterkin to have another year like he did last year. I think he'll be better. So I think there's a lot of factors that kind of buoy it, send it up, send it down. But I do think overall, I'm predicting them, if I'm looking at the standings, I'm predicting them to drop a little bit, but still probably a top 3 team in the Metro. Actually, definitely a top 3 team looking at the Metropolitan Division. But as far as playoffs, I don't know. That is last year. I thought that was their year to do it. I really did, because I thought that as good as they looked late last season, as good as they looked in those first couple of series, I thought that was their year to take it home. I'm not somebody that really has a lot of faith in the Rangers when it gets to that crunch time in the conference finals, just because I haven't seen it, right? The closest I've gotten to seeing it in my lifetime was 2012, 2014. And then they got to the final, and we all know how, I don't need to remind you guys of that. I know it's bringing up a sore subject, but that's my thought process when I see the Rangers. So just from an outsider's perspective, I wouldn't pick them to go any further.
Yeah, no, it's a fair take. I mean, I think there's a lot of questions around the core's ability to perform under pressure and in tighter checking series, and okay, well, I guess that's a no. I think you're the first guest we've had who was honest with us and said no. I think every other guest said they could, they're poised to win the cup. But I kind of agree. I think until they prove it, you can't really bet on it, right? That's the reality. It's one of those things. So
see, now Nick gave a definitive answer, not a parameter. Well, if this happens, they could be, and if that happens, he gave a nice.
Coach is impressed. Coach is impressed by Nick's answer.
Well, our Bruins guest was giving very vague answers, and Coach was getting a little annoyed.
Well, I mean, you got to give it to you guys straight, because that's what you're asking for, right? You're asking a question. You're not saying, hey, tell me about your feelings. You're saying, hey, yes or no, do you think they can do the thing? And
Exactly,
I say no, but I'm sure a lot of your fan base is not going to be happy with that, but it's my thought.
It's okay. No, I mean, I kind of agree with you. At the current moment, I don't think they have it, but we'll see what happens at the trade deadline. And as always, I mean, you always have to add some of those key pieces. Injuries happen over the course of the season and things like that. So,
I mean, every team has question marks. Every team has question marks. If this guy does this, they could do that. Blah blah blah. Just like you.
I said it last year, and I'm going to keep saying it. What Nick is saying is 100% right. Guys like Zibanejad, the Rangers' only chance to win a Stanley Cup is not going to be some savior they bring in. It's going to be Zibanejad and Panarin figuring out how to perform in tight checking series. And if they don't do that, they're not going to win the Stanley Cup. And that's it. I mean, that's what it boils down to, right? So, and there's no reason for any non-Ranger fan to have faith in their ability to do that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And Florida's
anyway,
coming back playing the same exact way next year. Tampa got better. It's like Boston's going to have a little chip on their shoulder.
They lose key pieces, but then they bring in like Nate Schmidt and who's the other defenseman they brought? They're just going to have like monster years, on these like sub-$1 million contracts. Crazy.
Nico Mikola is going to win the Norris Trophy.
Guy didn't throw a hit for the Rangers the whole time he was with them. But anyway,
again, that's a culture that players feed off of.
Yeah.
Well,
someone's got to establish it here. Maybe Matt Rempe will.
Isn't that the captain's job?
You didn't ask Nick about
he tried.
Oh yeah, Rempe.
You didn't ask Nick Rempe's opinion before we go.
Well, you're here to ask questions too,
I mean, I think what he does is electric for the game. I don't know how good he is in the playoffs. I mean, yeah, he'll get the crowd going, but can he, hold up in that important game 6 or game 7? If you put him out there, is he going to be able to be a net positive, or is he going to give up the big opportunity or take the bad penalty? Because at that time of the game, you need him to be the complete player. He can't just be, the Ryan Reeves of everything. I think he's better than Ryan Reeves. Don't get me wrong. He's better than Ryan Reeves. But I do think that he can be a liability out there, and that's part of growth. He's a young kid. If he can go out there and he can grow on it, and then that's exactly what you want. But you got to grow.
Another straight, fair answer from Nick. I got nothing to say. It's like, all right, like, great.
I got to start getting more. I got to start getting more hot takey around here because you guys
got to do something.
Yeah,
you're too nice of a guy to be a Pittsburgh Ranger rivalry guy. I don't know.
I don't know. Circle back to me on October 9th. We might have to, get a little bit more feisty.
There you go.
Has the Jacob Trouba hatred dissipated in Pittsburgh after the playoff series 2 years ago?
No. In Pittsburgh it hasn't. For me, I don't understand.
Another honest answer.
In Pittsburgh it hasn't. They still hate the guy, and every time they see him make a hit, they always ask the question. And I asked the same question. I said, he really needs to get that arm checked out because it seems like it's like a medical condition that
He's got an affliction.
It just comes out. He's got a twitch or something.
George Costanza.
Exactly. He's got to get it checked out at some point. I feel like there's a medical term for it, but I'm too stupid to figure that out.
Oh man. All right. Well, on that note, thanks Nick for joining us. Appreciate it.
Wait. We always ask one, give us one sleeper pick for our fantasy hockey league this year.
Right.
Or on the Penguins.
On the Penguins.
Pick on the Penguins for fantasy this year. That's a tough one because you got the top 6 guys that are all there and everybody knows them. The one guy that had a breakout year last year, if they're giving him the opportunities this year, he's going to put up points. Drew O'Connor, New Jersey guy, played with Crosby at the end of last season, scored 30-some points, 16 goals, but he just found his footing at the end of the year. At the beginning of the year, he kind of looked like a baby deer out there, not kind of sure what to do with all of his skill set. By the end of the year, playing with Crosby, being locker mates with Crosby, he seemed to have something click, and he started to score a lot of his points in those last 10, 11 games. If you can carry that over, he had a really good World Championships the year prior leading into that season. If you can carry that over, I think Drew O'Connor's a sneaky pick to stash away on your fantasy team.
Drew O'Connor. Thanks, buddy. Thanks for the tip, bud. Anyway, thanks again, Nick, for joining us. And
man,
rescheduling and coming on and everything. You're an awesome interview. You really know your stuff. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me on. Appreciate you dealing with the stuff I was dealing with the last week, but making sure I got to come on and talk with you guys before the season. It's always an hour well spent to talk to you guys.
Thanks for
much
putting
appreciated,
effort,
buddy. And thanks for displaying.
Hopefully we can chirp you.
The plaque behind you.
Oh yes, property.
Oh yeah,
Led's workshop.
There you go.
Well, it's yours now.
Just in time for the
Well,
contract.
mine now. Yeah, not property. Courtesy of. That's the word. You'd wonder if I did this for a living, not knowing words.
No, it's all right. I just can't control myself. Like I had the thought there to correct you, and like I was
you're good. I do the same thing. In the back of my head, it's running.
But yeah, we'll be chirping you opening night. I think Rangers Penguins, right? It's in Pittsburgh. You gonna go?
It is in Pittsburgh. I mean, I live in Virginia, so that'd be a long drive. But I will be. I think I'm gonna do a watch along for that one, so I'll be live for the entire game.
All right, cool. Maybe we'll check it out.
Maybe I'll have to have one of you guys on. We can chirp back and forth live.
Sure, man.
Yeah, for
We're
sure.
available. We'll definitely be watching, so let us know.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Nick.
All right,
really
Nick
appreciate
Belsky. Nick Belsky from the Tip of the Iceberg podcast. Check him out. Breakaway on SNY on X, at Nick Belsky, at Iceberg Podcast. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good night. Good luck with the car.
Later, man.
Thank you.
Oh, Coach, you are just a special kind of guy, man. I mean, this is why you're the star of the show. It's stuff like that. Dude, were you able to hear before when you left the room, by the way?
Yes, I left my headphones on.
Oh, so you heard when you left and Nick said Coach Ed is not interested in
Todd
Reardon. Todd Reardon. That was so funny. Oh, I love it. It's so good. Nick's always a good interview, man. He really knows his
He knows his stuff, man. Very smart. Has the voice for radio, voice for podcasting for sure.
Yeah, straight shooter.
Nice setup. Looks like he's got a nice studio over there, so he's a professional.
Yeah, straight shooter, honest answers. I can't say I disagree with his opinion on the Rangers either. It's tough, but as fans, we're hopeful. And look, there's one thing I've learned about sports in my life. It's don't try to predict, what players will rise to the occasion and when. Sometimes it takes time, and we just got to hope that these guys can figure it out and get over the hump. But I'm pumped for next week to start predicting. I've already been kind of going through my head here a little bit. Like, what's my bold prediction this year? I know Little Ed nailed it last year, and I was way off. So I got a lot of making up to do this season. And I'm curious for Coach Ed's predictions for the standings. I want to see that. I'm really pushing, and I keep texting it. I don't get any affirmations from the group, but I want to do some blind picks from Coach Ed on standings.
Yeah, let's do it.
So Coach, this is my idea, right? There's 8 teams in the Metro, so we'll do a 5-team blind pick. You got to put them in order, so 3 teams won't be part of it, and you have to. So you'll get this is the way it works, right? Columbus Blue Jackets. You have to place them 1 to 5. You don't know what the other 4 teams are going to be and what 3 teams are going to be left out. So you got to rank them. And then the next one, you can't move it. After you rank them, that's their spot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I feel like I'm playing a new board game. I need a rule sheet next to me.
No, I'm telling you. I've seen it.
So can you go over that again? Can you go over that again from the top?
I'll send you a clip. I saw it. I saw Rupper doing it.
Run through that one more time.
Yeah. We're going to run them both.
I made Lindsay watch that last week. It was so funny.
Dude, after I left the city, when you guys left the city, I texted Coach a picture of the Honey Nut Cheerios box. Did you see that?
No, I sent it to you.
No, that was the next day.
From my cabinet. Oh, okay.
You were on the train, and I sent you the Honey Nut Cheerios box, and I said, I turned to Hazen, and I'm like, my hope is that he just starts quoting the campaign on the train with them and just starts saying like it would have been another 45 minutes.
Me and Lindsay rented it on Amazon that night,
and then we watched it the next day.
Yeah, we finished it. Oh no, we rewatched it.
Remember when you made me buy it? Where was that? Was that Aaron's wedding? Oh yeah, I own it on Amazon. Just log into my Amazon.
I
But
rented
anyway.
it for like $2. I didn't want to spend the
He's
whole
like-
$14.99.
Yeah, he's like, come on, just buy it. I'm like, all right, whatever. Anyway,
shit.
all right. Well, good episode. Fun talking Pittsburgh. So I think the idea is next week we'll do our standings predictions, and we'll talk a little training camp. And then the following week we'll do some Ranger specific predictions. That'll be 2 days before the season starts, so we'll be right on cue. And then we'll jump right into the season. Week 1 of the podcast will be the following week. I think that's I want to say the 12th of October.
No, the 12th is Saturday, the game.
Yeah, so the opening night is the 9th. Let me just look at the calendar. The 14th. The 14th will be the first, October 14th, our first season episode where we'll actually talk some games. We'll do the trivia. We'll do jersey profile, all the good stuff. We'll start numbering the episodes again. So two preseason prediction episodes, fans. Next week, the 30th, and then the 7th, and then the 14th. You can tune in for some game recaps. We got a couple games to cover that day. So I'm looking forward to it. We're back.
So coach isn't surprised for next week. Are we doing just the Metro or all of the divisions?
What do you want? I don't care either way.
I don't know. It's going to be a long episode if we do all the divisions, but I guess we can run through it quick. I mean, I don't really know much about the West, but I think we can handle it.
We can do West. Last year we did West predictions. We don't have to go in depth on each team. With the East, I think we'll spend most of the episode on, and then we'll just rank the West. We'll throw the prediction out there.
And Mikey P's away. I think he's out on this open sea, so I don't think we can have him on for his expertise.
Oh, did he tell you that I kind of pressured him to join my fantasy hockey league because I had a manager quit and I needed someone to step in, so Mikey P
That's
stepped
hilarious.
up for me. Yeah,
he should just co-chair it with Mrs. 150.
Well, that's our league. He's gonna run our league, but my dynasty league that I run.
I know they should do that. They should just do it together for yours. They each had a team for ours.
I don't need somebody else winning that league. I need to win. All right. It's been a few years since I won. So let's keep Mrs. 150 out of the league.
The penalty stat has to not get any points. You should be getting negative points.
Mikey P is the new commissioner of our league. If you want to remove or add stats, you can talk to him, and it's fully in his discretion.
Because he's got to take that. That's ridiculous. You get points for penalty minutes.
It
doesn't make any sense.
Fully in his discretion.
It doesn't make sense.
I think they did that for you because they wanted you to be able to draft like your grinders and stuff.
I had to take it out.
It's not up to me. If Mike,
but we still want hits.
Oh, of course, hits is a good stat, but penalty minutes.
Yeah. Are we gonna record the draft? We got to set the draft and
that was the most
it
fun.
Too. Yeah. So we're also going to
be
do
on
that,
like a Wednesday. That could be on like a Wednesday night or a Friday night or something.
Yeah, that's not going to be regular, but that's coming up too. So we'll let you guys know when we're doing that. Yeah, you gonna check your team this year, both of you?
I did it
very well in the beginning, and I
look. You go on the app. You go on the app and it says start optimal players, and you click that button, and it just sets your lineup for you. AI. Just sets your lineup. So
what?
You don't even.
Why didn't you tell us that last year?
Well, you could just do that now.
Well, you know why he didn't, Coach? You know why he didn't tell us last year? Because we were winning. Because we were doing well. And I had McDavid number 1 overall, and he got off to the slowest season anyone could possibly get off to. And I also had Pierre-Luc Dubois that couldn't do anything on LA. So my interest, I lost it. I did draft very well. I had the number 1 team after the draft.
So are we gonna kick out Dom? We have to kick Dom out, right?
And then the phone call happened.
First, the phone call happened.
We need some easy wins. Leave Dom.
No, listen. First of all, if you use AI, that's bullshit. You got to go on and pick your team. Otherwise, anybody can do it.
AI sets your lineup, not picks your team. First of all, I don't do that.
It's the same thing. You got to pick your lineup.
I don't do it. I take the time and look at my roster and make decisions. But you guys complain that you don't have time.
No, I never said that. I missed a couple of times where I forgot. I never said I don't have time.
Coach had a pretty good year. Did you make the playoffs last year?
I was in the middle.
we got to
I think I
figure
was in
out.
the middle.
I don't know how much the fans want to listen to this, but we'll keep going. We got to figure out the goalie situation because that also screwed me.
What do you mean?
There weren't enough goalies like in the league for me to have to meet the start requirement. Like that,
That's where I got screwed in the playoffs.
Well, you have to do that.
Not good. I'm not good at fantasy. So like, I understand that, but maybe
you have to do that because you know why? Because if you don't have a minimum start requirement, let's say you start Shesterkin, he gets a shutout and a win. You're like, I'm not going to start any more goalies the rest of the week because I'm guaranteed
maybe
to win
make it 2 star requirements
categories.
instead of 3.
I think you can find 3
maybe
starts
I just suck
over the
at
course
it.
of a week. Yeah, you'll be all right. Draft 3 goalies instead of 2. That's how I told you that last year. Take 3 goalies instead of 2.
So Kathy, just to get a little plug in, Kathy does the Toastmasters thing. So she was in a contest. So she calls me up after. She goes,
"What's that?"
No, it's where you give public speaking. So she had to do her speech. She goes, "Oh, I came in a third." I go, "Out of how many?" She goes, 4. I said, "Well, you know what they say." She starts cracking up. If you ain't first, you're last.
Oh my God!
I shot her right down.
Hilarious.
She was laughing.
Well, we got a busy schedule coming up, so let's all go get our rest. You know, we got a lot to prepare for. I know Coach Ed's going to start making his standings predictions soon. He's going to have to look at what moves were made during the off season. I don't know if you paid attention all off season, but
I've been watching NHL Network. They have the ticker tape on the bottom. I've been watching it. I'm not studying it like you are.
Well, we had a lot of good guests.
Unlike you,
for the
I
Rivalry
actually
Tour, so we know.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Hilarious.
What else? Oh, we're gonna have a best of the Rivalry Tour, right? Want to announce that? We're gonna announce an episode. If you guys couldn't catch all the episodes of the Rivalry Tour, we're gonna do like a little best of. Take the best clips and best conversations from each episode and put them all together for you guys. So we'll release that as a little bonus episode. And hopefully have some social media clips as well. So keep an eye out for that.
Oh, I'm glad you reminded me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
When is the deadline? When is the deadline of me having to listen to that?
Listen to it on your flight back from Florida. How about that?
How do I do that?
You got to download it so you can listen to it offline.
Oh, okay.
I'll tell you. Just call me.
That's a good idea.
Have to do this live on the episode. All right, guys. That's it for tonight. Love you guys.
Love you guys.
Stay home safe.
See you next week.
Let's go.